student was a guest in the United States on a student visa. No one's entitled to a student visa.
So you revoked her student visa based on an op-ed which trumps the Supreme law of the land, which is the Constitution.
Someone's coming up here to stir up problems on our campus. We're going to revoke their visa.
She didn't do any of that. She wrote an op-ed.
Well,
she wrote an op-ed, and I'm talking to you about her particular case.
Claims and your claims. Those are not the facts.
You reclaiming my time. You revoked her student visa because
proudly.
she wrote an op-ed.
And
Would you revoke?
We're going to do more. We will revoke the visa of anyone who's in this country as a guest who's here to stir up trouble.
Are you going to revoke the visa of somebody who made that?
Send me the case. I'll look at it. I'm looking to get crazy people out of our country.
Actually, it's not just about revoking. You actually, Secretary Rubio, excuse me, reclaiming my time. If these are legitimate law enforcement agents carrying out proper arrest, why are they hiding their identities?
Because then radical crazies will try to hurt them.
I love that we're just deporting people. I love that we're grabbing people who are causing any trouble. And what amazes me is that this is all a shock because it's so different than what we've done. What a crazy, suicidal immigration policy we've had for so long. Joining me now, Mark Krikorian, wonderful executive director at the Center for Immigration Studies. Mark, honestly, I cheer about a lot of this stuff, but it still makes me angry how many people, illegals, leftists, otherwise, they genuinely feel that every foreigner just has a right to come here and pillage the place at their leisure. They really genuinely believe this in their bones.
Yeah, they do believe that anyone, literally everybody has the right to come here, period. And that the First Amendment applies to every foreigner abroad and every foreigner who comes here no matter what. It's crazy. And, a visa is not an entitlement. As Secretary Rubio was saying there, you're a guest here. And when I go to another country, I'm a guest there. And if I conduct myself in a way that is inappropriate or is considered inappropriate by the people there, whether I think it's inappropriate or not, I lose my permission to be there. That's the way it is. It's the only reason we're seeing these complaints is that we have allowed things to get so bad that in changing them, in actually enforcing the rules, it seems like some kind of, radical change, some kind of appalling procedure, when in fact it should just be business as usual.
Mark, how did this get here into our country? And I realize this is an old story. It didn't start with Joe Biden or Barack Obama or any of these things. How did we get to this place as a country where the world and half of our people just think everyone should get to come here because America kind of sucks? Did this start in the 50s, the 2000s? When did we get this mentality immigration-wise?
I can't point to a specific date, but clearly the 1960s and the whole Cultural Revolution that happened then is what resulted, it sort of blossomed into what we're seeing now. So if I had to pick a date, I don't know, 1968 maybe. That was a bad year for America all around. And, it's not like that right then is when things changed, but that's kind of was the start of this, idea that America's bad, that borders are immoral, and that everyone in the world has the right to come here, even if they badmouth us, because we're so bad anyway, so they should be badmouthing us.
Mark, obviously nothing's universal, so you shouldn't take it that way. Well, nobody should take it that way, but why is it so often the children of people who get to come here on a visa or refugee status turn into the most vile America haters in this country? Obviously, I'm thinking about people like Ilhan Omar and others, but this is a very, very common thing. Mom, dad came here, everything's okay. Son, daughter loses his mind. What's happening?
Yeah, first of all, like you said, you don't want to exaggerate that. There's plenty of children of immigrants who are normal, patriotic Americans. But you see the same phenomenon, though, in England, in France, and elsewhere. And I think the difference is that the immigrant generation is coming here and comparing things to what it was like back in the old country. And it's obviously better. And so it's their children have gone through our terrible education system, basically learned to hate America in a way that we didn't teach the children of immigrants or our own children, 100 years ago. And some share of them, figure, okay, that's the way it is. And so I'm going to hate America too. That's part of my being an American.
Maybe this whole Afrikaner thing maybe it's been beneficial because it's been such a revealing moment, not just for how the media covers things, but for what's happening across the globe. Everyone remembers this moment with Trump and the president of South Africa.
I would say if there was Afrikaner farmer genocide, I can bet you these three gentlemen would not be here.
Turn the lights down and just put this on. It's right behind you. Now this is very bad. These are burial sites right here. Burial sites. Over 1,000 of white farmers, and those cars are lined up to pay love on a Sunday morning. Each one of those white things you see is a cross. Those people were all killed.
Have they told you where that is, Mr. President? No, I'd like to know where that is, because this I've never seen. Okay.
I mean, it's in South Africa.
The response to that by the media has been pretty revealing, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, Trump is a master of this kind of thing. I mean, look, I don't think we should be resettling refugees at all, except in a handful of real emergency cases. And these guys don't qualify. And in fact, this program now has 70,000 people in South Africa who all want to move here. They're not Afrikaners, they're just anybody who's a racial minority. But that having been said, this really does expose the hypocrisy of the other side. And for that, to that end, I'm not that worked up about it. It's a small number, and it has generated this almost crazed response. And in fact, one of the anti-borders groups, the Episcopal Church's refugee resettlement group, pulled out of the program rather than help resettle Afrikaner refugees. So I'd say overall, this was a kind of psyop that Trump did, and it's been a pretty successful one.
Is it just because they're white, Mark? Does it just come down to that? It's because they're white?
I think a lot of it, but even more that they're Afrikaners specifically, because it's a kind of blood libel that, the Afrikaners were the ones who created apartheid, which hasn't existed for 30 plus years. But it doesn't matter. Their descendants into the last generation have to bear the guilt, just as all Americans are supposed to be guilty of everything that people did 300 years ago here.
Mark, talk to me about these judges. What are we supposed to do about this? Because it's going to be 4 years of you can't deport these guys, you can't deport those guys. So what are we, just sunk? You can import 20 million people during Joe Biden's presidency, and when a Republican takes over, they allow you to deport about 2?
Yeah, no, it is pretty unbelievable. And what I think, though, the administration is going to do is stick to its guns, keep working through the courts, because in the end, I'm pretty confident they're going to pull it off. But it's incredibly frustrating, and that's the goal, is to make the border a kind of ratchet so that a Democrat administration can let in anybody they want. And that was the claim of the Biden administration. They were allowed to admit anyone they wanted in any number they wanted by the millions, but that each one of them has to have endless due process before they're allowed to leave. It is ridiculous. I hope the judiciary is, in fact, at some point reined in by the Supreme Court. That's their job, because the alternative is worse. The alternative is we essentially have a kind of breakdown, and at some point, the administration is going to say, look, we couldn't care less. We're just, they're just going to blow them off. Because, what if a judge says, okay, Trump has to go around wearing a funny hat on his head the rest of his life, and it's illegal, unconstitutional if he doesn't obey that rule? Well, at some point, judges are going to come up with rulings that cannot be complied with. I don't want that to happen. That's bad for the system, but it's the left-wing judiciary that is potentially forcing that crisis.
They sure are. Mark, as always, thank you, boss. I would thank you for coming to my YouTube channel, but I know how brilliant it is, and I know you love it here. So subscribe and watch. We're going to start really ramping things up and putting some funny stuff, some interesting stuff out there, some collaborations. Either way, my YouTube channel is officially the place to be. So stick around.